I was having with your shirt is that a couple of the silhouettes of the cows on your shirt look like the cow's butt.
Oh.
Like, this one clearly has the ears, but, like, I thought this was the back, and, like, it was facing that way.
Oh, no.
No, it kind of does.
And I was like, Ben and Jerry's butt cream.
Jeez, it's ice cream,
No,
man.
see, that's Dr. Dre. That's Ice Cube. That's the one guy who wasn't important. And that's the other guy that went to jail.
Do they have white legs?
No, they're all black men.
I know.
Yeah,
black, white spots.
Do they have white legs?
Looks like
Yeah,
cows.
they do have white
Wait,
legs when they're surrounded by white
Yeah,
skin.
has anyone ever seen their legs?
Are they actually cows?
Yeah, they are.
They don't actually have legs.
They lactate.
Well, I saw there was this thing, you know, like, what was that show, Back to the Barnyard?
Oh, jeez.
Where,
my
like, the
God.
male cow had udders.
That always-
And there was this,
yeah.
I think it was Robot Chicken, like, was straight up, like, just like they had, like, pitchforks, and it was like, male cows don't have udders. Oh, if we're being a stickler for this crap, if we're standing up on our hind legs, which shouldn't be possible, we would just break under the pressure. And then they immediately all their legs just cracked. They're like, ah! Like, once you call attention to it, suddenly physics have to come back to the world.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. So I guess
Like these.
I should not, like, bang around on the chair too much. All right. I guess we should start. I'm going to introduce myself, and then you guys can go too. I am Robert Lauer. I am a sophomore in game design at the Cleveland Institute of Art.
I'm Austin Haller, and I'm also a sophomore in game design at the Cleveland Institute of Art.
I'm Batman. Where's the Joker? Where is he?
I'm Cameron Denton, also a sophomore at Cleveland Institute of Art.
Hey, my name is Colin Wolf.
No one cares. Anyway, continue,
What they said.
Colin Wolf.
I don't know what they said.
We are all sophomores at the Cleveland Institute of Art for game design, and this is the first podcast of the Game of the Month Club. Now, it is book club, but with video games.
Because screw books.
Less reading.
Books are, they take too long, and they're just full of words. So why don't we have a game that makes words, like, yell at us, you know?
Exactly.
Like, throws them in our face.
Kia, you know.
So the first game that we are playing this month is a Flash game called Phoenotopia. It was developed by an author named Quells. I'm not completely sure if that's a studio or if it's a single user. I looked at his design blog. It's hard to tell. The music was done by Cruz B and Silly the Willy. And additional art was done by Marshmallow Pirate. I almost just read Marshmallow because I decided to draw a pirate hat instead of actually writing pirate because I don't even like writing.
And these are the
you have
accounts.
to read it.
Yeah.
These are their account names as they appear on Newgrounds.
Which was the initial sponsor site of the game Phoenotopia. And anybody can go play this game, and that's what we're going to keep going with the Game of the Month Club. All the games we play are going to be games that anybody can access for free and easily.
If I may add, one important thing about this game is whoever Quells is a jerk. Okay, this game ruined me for about 5 hours. That's as far I got before I cried.
All right, so the basic premise of the game is it's very obviously, I think it even says it in the description at some point, is a Zelda-esque side-scroller. There are dungeons, bosses feel Zelda-esque. The way you traverse the world and get new items and how you use the items to solve puzzles in each dungeon it very much feels like Zelda.
Yeah.
And it even uses Zelda sound effects, which we were talking about that, me, Austin and I. I'm not completely sure how they do that. They have a clock timer, the timer from Ocarina of Time, that when you press the button, it goes.
Yeah, and when you push crates, it uses that like shuffling sound from Ocarina of Time.
And,
as well.
I mean, that's really confusing to me.
And some of the pot smashing sounds.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if those are royalty-free sounds or if he bought them, because, I mean, those sounds I have never heard those except in Zelda games until this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
don't put it out there too much because he might get in a lot of trouble once Nintendo catches wind of this.
That ticking noise is a very clear Zelda noise.
Yes.
But the pot smashing, I've heard that in a lot of games, like Resident Evil 4 and
The
all
psh.
kinds of games
Yeah,
where
that typical
when you
psh.
smash the jar or whatever,
the clock
it's the
sound.
same exact sound.
Watch,
yeah,
watch.
the ticking.
Miyamoto's going to look up like,
If Miyamoto listened to this podcast somehow,
He should
I'd
be
probably
honored.
cry.
Honestly, if Miyamoto listened to this podcast, he'd just be like, He doesn't.
know
I don't
what
think
they're
he really
saying.
speaks English.
I think he can understand it at least.
I think he only knows enough to like get by at E3. Like, hello, my name is Shigeru Miyamoto. This is Zelda. And then like, and then what is it? What's the Nintendo of America guy?
Reggie.
Reggie just comes in, "Hey!" and then he takes over. Like every E3.
He knows enough to announce what it is that's about to happen and get to the bathroom afterward.
Yeah.
And then that's it.
Like, so often he'll come up on the stage, play the game for a little bit, and then just leave. And it's like, where did he go?
It's like God. He just comes in for a moment, ticks around a little bit and then leaves.
Let's just leave the God out of it. Yeah, okay. So the basic premise of the game is, the story-wise, is that you are a young girl in a village when... Named Gale. And a meteorite crashes and you go to look for it. While you are looking for it, aliens abduct everybody in your village, and all that's left are all the children. And that gives you your motivation to go out into the world and find out what happened and everything afterwards. We'll get into more of the story about like what happens later. I don't know if we want to do too many spoilers.
Yeah,
Probably
let's
not.
keep the spoilers to a minimum.
Yeah, we might end up spoiling mechanics by chance, because that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the design. And first, I'd like to talk about the aesthetics. I mean, I forgot to mention, as far as I know the sequel's being made in Unity, but this game was made in Unity, which is a program that our game design students learn to use in junior year.
Junior year.
Yeah, next year.
And I haven't really seen that many 2D Unity games that look this flushed out and this functional. I mean,
Unless they came with Unity themselves.
This is great.
Already.
So aesthetics wise, it's a pixel art game, and I wanted to ask, like, what do you guys think about the pixel art?
It looks great.
I mean, they do a really great job with the palette. I mean, everything, it has like a nice level of detail to everything.
For me, it feels like what pixel art definitely should be, because it's never a moment where you're looking at something like, God, what am I looking at? You know exactly what you're looking at just from the art by itself, which is where pixel art needs to be.
Something I like about it, like, I'm just thinking old Disney movies and animations, I noticed that all of the sprites don't have any, like, shading to them. They are all flat shapes of colors.
Yeah,
the frogs,
right.
the enemies, the main characters. Gale, the main character, is pink hair, a beige shirt, and moves and everything like that. The animation is great. It's always easy to tell which way the characters are facing. When she moves, they just do a great job of, like, making the eyes bigger and smaller, like the head is moving side to side.
Yeah, it's a really simple way to just make that happen with squares.
It's just great. Like, the background, absolute flat color. Foreground and middle ground is like a lot of detailed flush out. In the forest, all the leaves get like a nice characterization to them. And I'm not completely sure. I believe it is. I think this is all tiled. Like, these are
it looks
tile
like
sets.
Yeah. These are.
Some games get away with making it look like a tile set, but it actually isn't.
I dabbled a little bit in trying to figure out how the 2D works in Unity, and it kind of works the same as the normal 3D assets do, as in like one set thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like whoever the artist was for it created these different assets in the shape of just square tiles and kept replicating them in multiple places, because 2D Unity doesn't come with a tile set basis. It doesn't do that, yeah.
And that sounds like a pain, but I mean, I just want to talk about one thing real quick. We've talked about it outside. I do not like the main character's design, Gale. I feel like she's too basic.
It's all right. She's like the only person that has pink hair in the whole
I think that's
game,
her big like standpoint of showing exactly like what her difference is, because her hair, it sticks out the most. Maybe the outfit not so much, but you know who you're looking at the minute you see that little floop at the top.
Even parts of her silhouette, the only thing she has going for her silhouette is that little floop. I mean, think of all the NPCs you run into.
Yeah.
There's like the bomb guy. There's who is it? Lisa, who is at the desert town with the little like pookies. Mm-hmm. She has like more color to her, more
so
detail.
Beautiful.
She had personality. A lot of the character designs have more personality than Gale, and I don't know if that's purposeful. Like, she's supposed to be like a blank slate that you fill in, but even then, like, she doesn't. So I want to, like, in the game, it's a Zelda-esque game.
Yeah.
you get items and you get better at the game over time through avatar strength and player strength. You get better at the game as a player, but your avatar in the game also gets stronger, more damage, better weapons.
A little bit.
Well,
If you get the weapons.
Yeah, with the hammer and
which I probably should have bought before that boss fight.
Yeah.
Didn't know about it.
I looked at the hammer and I was
hammer?
like, God, I
Didn't know
want it,
about
but
it.
it cost too much.
Yeah,
I should've went back.
there's the hammer, the armors, different weapons but a lot of it comes down to player skill.
Yeah.
But you get all these advancements, but she never changes. And in most games that's not a big problem, but like think back to like Ocarina of Time. In Ocarina of some people, if you've played Ocarina of
played a
Time,
Zelda game.
you do the first 3 dungeons as a child. And
Right.
then throughout the rest of the game, as you grow, you actually get more hearts, which this game does too. You get more life, which is an actual growth, and more damage.
It's probably
weapons,
one of the
that.
main ones.
But you also grow physically, and your arsenal grows as well. And like, there's an actual change in the avatar as you're going stronger.
Yeah.
Right.
So
but that's just another mechanic of progressing through the game, and they just use a changing color to show that difference.
Yeah, I mean, like old games do that, Zelda games. But I mean, even if like they did something with their equipment or armor, like if they showed the armor that you get later in the game, that would make a huge difference to me, because then the avatar is reflecting the strength you're gaining as a player.
Right. Like if like
They changed the hammer.
when you get new armor, it's permanent. It's not like you can just take it off. So I think if they changed the way you looked a little bit, just to because it's permanent, it doesn't really matter if you take it off or not.
And actually, the armors, not that much of a spoiler. The 2 armors you get is like, there's the very beginning armor, and then there's chainmail, which you get at one of the towns. You could almost just do like a palette swap with her character, and then the last armor you get is future armor, like from one of the aliens, and that's blue and black. That's another palette swap, but at least it would emulate a sense of growth.
Mm-hmm. And I understand why she looks like this, because pretty much everybody in the world looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a while, like, this is spoilers, so I'm not gonna say, but after a certain point, I understood why everybody looked so, medievally primitive, like with leather and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what about the scientists? Like the
Yeah,
flat out
I mean-
scientists wearing lab coats, but everybody else is in rags.
Yeah, but you still recognize it, and
I think that was a conveyance thing.
Yeah.
He's a scientist. He does this. Lab coat. Doesn't even matter if it fits in perfectly. You recognize that as a scientist right away. And it doesn't stand
That's
out too
probably
much
like
because...
important part in it.
Yeah, and I mean, it matches everything else in the world. It's kind of semi-cartoony, everything like that. But like, a thing about the NPC design, a lot of them have better silhouettes and everything like that. A lot of the NPCs actually look really interesting, even just like random towns.
Yeah, I like the desert town NPCs.
Oh, yeah.
Dear God, they had
Like,
Like
you
the pants.
felt what type of region they were going for. Like I walked there and I instantly like, yeah, this is Middle Eastern. The desert isn't even what gave it away. It was like the first guard I saw. I was like, yeah, this is definitely like a Middle Eastern-esque type of town. It's supposed to feel like a location that's that type of region.
the music is actually what really made me feel that.
Yeah.
They had the great instrumental. I don't even know what instrument it is, and I've used it before in music. But
It's a kazoo.
nah.
a kazoo.
But the music wasn't like it. See, this is like pixel art, but it's not 8-bit pixel art, and it's not 16. It doesn't feel like 16-bit either. It feels like I think this is a great example of new age pixel.
It's a pixel art that isn't made because of constraints due to
Well,
technology.
and it's not made to look like older games and to
Yeah,
emulate that. It's made because this is its own aesthetic. I've seen a lot of games like Shovel Knight Shovel Knight is the best nostalgic game I've seen out there because they use a palette and they actually they only add I think 6 colors to their palette, and there are more colors on screen than would be possible usually. But it feels the most like an NES game. But this game doesn't feel like a Super Nintendo game or an NES game. It feels like a new age game.
It feels like a Flash game.
Yeah, and I mean that essentially is what it is. It's a web game, but it feels like the kind of game that it's easily accessible. That's what we're getting at nowadays. Easily accessible, downloadable games, and it feels like that, but with a lot of depth in it.
Yeah.
And I love the pixel art. It feels new. And I will say I mean, this game proves the concept that why is there not a side-scrolling Zelda game? Ever since Link, the second Zelda game, The Adventure of Link, they've just never done it because that game most people don't like. But they have a formula now.
It's so difficult.
They add all these
That's the
RPG
whole
elements.
thing, really. But
Yeah.
it's just way more different from any other Zelda game because of those RPG elements.
Well, it was only the second game in its series back then, and it wasn't necessarily bad. It just wasn't the original. And then when Link to the Past came out, that's when they really set the standard for what Zelda games are. But they've never revisited the concept of a side-scrolling Zelda, and I think this really works. You have the slingshot. You have flat-out, like, Zelda items. One of the first accessory item you get is a slingshot, and it works like throwing eggs in Yoshi's Island. You hit the button and hold it for a while, and the target moves up and down. And once you release the button, it flies towards the target. It also has gravity, which involved a lot of puzzles. Like they tell you right away that it bounces off walls, and you have to hit switches with it.
Yeah, and then after so many bounces, it'll just disappear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't like lag the game and everything. And that's a game design thing. Like you need to be able to not have too many things going on at once.
Right.
So besides that, like I will say the overworld map was one of my favorite things. I personally love
It's really interesting.
overworld maps, and it really simplified the game.
Yeah.
In that, instead of just going to the left of the screen and then like it just takes you to the next town, and you have to keep doing that. And that's something Zelda 2 actually did do. Just you actually would wander around top down, and this you just go from point to point.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot more easy to navigate because it's like when you go through a place, after you go through whatever area it is that has a whole bunch of enemies and you get so upset after finally getting through it, then you can just go back to a town and then you don't have to go through it anymore because you already progressed through it.
There are two issues with that system, though. Well, one is a personal issue. The second one is issue with the inns. Mm-hmm. So inns actually got more expensive the further you got into the game. But you can go back to the beginning of the game and sleep for free, and it's not that much of a hassle. You leave the town and go through the little locations, and then you sleep for free, and you get all the benefits.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, but I thought it was nice to have that because of the difficulty of the actual gameplay and fighting enemies like those stupid frogs.
I mean, so it was very useful in those areas where it was in the middle of a dungeon. That kind of thing. I think there was one in the river that halfway through the river there was a space you could sleep in. But then there's a certain place, the location where you get bombs, you can sleep in that person's bed for free. And that is a very easy location to go to and instantly find the bed. There's not like the incentive, like there's little incentive to actually buy the inns and everything like that, like buy a room there.
I think it's just like if you really want to, you're in this area, you don't feel like having to take the trek to go
it's
and jump the map and go to like Freedom Blaze. You just do this really quick. It's less
if you're
of,
there.
Yeah, it's less of like, oh, there's an added benefit of paying for the end. It's more so just like, well, it's a quicker to do as opposed to, taking the time to walk back and do this, that, and this.
With the bomb house, though, it was very easy to go to that location, take 2 jumps, and then you're at the bed. Yeah. It was very easy to go there, get out really fast. With other locations, you would have to walk a long distance once you got there to get to the bed. That one was very easy, and it was free. Yeah. The other issue I do somewhat have with the overworld map is that almost every location you discover on it, you only discover by talking to someone.
Talking to people.
Yeah. I mean, that's not really a bad thing. It just forces you then to talk to people because then you discover other things while talking with the NPCs.
But,
yeah,
I feel like
I think it's important to have that relationship with NPCs, so it's like they're not just there pointlessly talking to you about random crap in their lives. But I think it's a little difficult to find out who to talk to because sometimes it's just some random person that's not even important. All they do is tell you where something is.
It just depends on how you feel. Like it's kind of towards the RPG element because if you're a keen person who enjoys lots of RPGs, you don't even mind. Because I, for one, I don't care talking to everybody in town. I want to go and talk to everybody in town because I know within the game with this type of element, it's a good thing. You never know what you find. So most people who play RPGs are like, heck yeah, I'm going to go and just talk to every person because this person might tell me, here's an item. Here's something you should go do. You never know. as opposed to people who are like more keen towards quick playing games. They're not going to talk to everybody because they're not. That's not what in.
But I'm going to ask you, how often were you on the overworld map and then you saw a location you really wanted to go to, and there's like a pathway that leads there, but you're not allowed to go there yet because you didn't talk to someone?
Annoying.
Yeah, I found that really annoying. I mean, you could like easily I feel like, because even in those locations, like the bandits' hideout, you couldn't actually access the dungeon until you got bombs.
Yeah.
So what was wrong with just discovering that location?
Oh, yeah.
And then there was an incentive like, there's something I need to do to explore this further, but I need to talk to someone before I'm allowed to do it. It feels weird in that sense. Like, I mean, a lot of the Zelda games started doing this recently. You can't go to Death Mountain unless you bring me a letter in the Ocarina of Time. And that's kind of irritating, especially because you know that you can climb over things, but now you're not allowed to climb over this. I don't think it's wrong to have story motivate exploration. I think but it needs to be the motivator, not the unlocker.
Yeah.
Like in games like this, like I just feel like, because you couldn't even leave the town until you talked to someone.
Yeah.
Or in the new town, you're not allowed to go to this neat location of your friend. There's like a friend that you've had for a long time, and you're not allowed to go to his house until you talk to your other friend.
Yeah.
And I personally find that irritating. Some people don't. I mean, it does motivate you to talk to the NPCs and learn things.
Yeah, depending on the type of game, whether it's RPG and very
So
story based, you know, like when you go somewhere and you reach a wall, then it's like, in some games they'll do that where you hit that wall at the point that you need to cross, but you can't. And effective way to do that is have someone at that wall tell you need to go back and do this in a way, and then it's like it gives more importance to, you know, wherever you need to go or whoever you need to talk to before that.
I will say I don't know if you guys have played one of those old RPGs and you've left the game for a while, and then you come back and you have no idea what to do. I really wish there was an NPC to tell me what I was doing.
Yeah.
That's why I think like the Pokemon games have that journal that you come back and it tells you, recently you did this. It's like,
I think
that's
this-
what
I
you
was
do
afraid
next.
with that in this game, only because like I had stopped it for just a little bit, and I was sitting here constantly every day thinking about what I had did last, so I wouldn't forget, because I knew there was nobody that would let me know. And I was like right there, save point in a dungeon. I'm like, dear God, if I forget what I was doing, I know I'm going to be screwed.
Yeah, mid-dungeon is
That's the worst time.
because you're like,
I think this game could benefit from a synopsis kind of thing where it just keeps
a journal.
track of
Just
your
a journal.
progress.
yeah, and I mean the journal kind of things. You find journals throughout the game, and I feel like having your own would kind of fit. Even like maybe you either carried along with you, which would be convenient, but there can always be like you left it back at your house or something, and then you backtrack, and then there's a sense of backtracking and talking to the people there too.
But that would be a hassle to have to go all the way back to your journal to do that. Because by the point of you starting to go back to try and figure out what you were doing, you probably remembered in the course, like, oh, dear God, now I know what I was
I
doing.
think that's a benefit for side quests too, because it's like, if the whole thing is just main plot stuff, then you get kind of annoyed having to go back so far just to get one thing to progress the main quest, where it's like if you go back there and you find people that want help with some random side quest stuff, then you have more to do, and it's like this was a lot more beneficial.
Side quests always have like a weird... Imagine like how weird side quests can be in certain games like this, only because like my best example, recently, like not too long ago, I got the game Tales of Xillia, and RPG game, Tales games, everybody usually knows them. They're one of the more classic type of RPGs, and they keep the same formula with each game, albeit a change to maybe combat system. I always found games like that, and it kind of fits with this too to an extent, is that you have a very pressing matter you have to do right now. Side quests feel so out of place only in the sense that you have a pressing matter. You do not have time to help random Joe pick up an apple from a tree. Why am I going off to do this thing when I have this pressing matter in mind?
Please help me find my chickens.
Like,
I'll give you a bottle.
My village is gone.
reward.
Everyone that I love is gone.
Everyone's dead.
Forget your chickens. My mother is missing.
They do it, you know, the correct way, is in making it not super serious like the main quest is.
Yeah.
And because it's like this is funny or this is charming about it, and you know you're going to get a reward at the end that'll make the main thing easier.
What I like is a lot of the main quests, I don't know if you guys got to them. As I was saying, like the future armor, and there's a bracelet you get that lets you...
Nah, I'll tell you why I didn't get there once we get to the part talking about some of them battle mechanics. When we get to that point, I'll tell you why I didn't get to that part, sir.
But a lot of side quests actually aren't activated by people. Almost all of the side quests are activated by just exploring. Which I love.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, if you see a random
that.
door, you're like, how do I get through that door?
They were so good at pointing those out. In the forest, they made a whole bunch of those. Even in the start of the village, in your own house, you obviously see a hole in the ceiling. And you're like, how do I get up there?
I'm feeling like I don't know if it's later on in the game, because like I said, I didn't get that far for specific reasons. But I know, like, this is probably a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm not going to say it too much. There is a way to get a new type of movement skill. I'm not going to put it out there, but it's going to be obvious in the beginning of the game.
Are you talking about the roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a spoiler. That is in the very beginning of the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You won't believe when I actually found it. That was
This game
after
is
the
called
first boss.
Phoenotopia.
Dude, did you know that 5 minutes into the game, like this
Look,
thing...
let me tell
Why are
you-
spoiling this for me?
I didn't see that until after the first boss fight. I was like, dude, there's a roll? And I was
didn't
like,
see that
ah,
either.
crap.
You have to buy it, and I believe
yeah.
you get it after the boss fight, but I mean you see it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're stupid like me, then you wouldn't have seen that.
And
either,
and it's
either way, is there
necessary
a-
to completing the game. And there was a there's a backtrack once you get the slingshot. If you explore in your hometown, you see a
Yeah.
switch, and then immediately in the dungeon you learn that hey, switches can be hit by slingshots.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you get those items, they immediately put you into a position where you have to use the item.
That's kind of
And
like when
then
I
you
backtracked
recognize
when they got
forever
the
what you need to
rolls.
use.
Yeah, I was
Well-
like, oh, there are rolling places. Holy crap, that's what it was for. Oh, gee willikers. And then when I got the bomb, I was like, oh, so that's what the bomb is for. It's supposed to blow up that rock. Gee willikers. And I went and start bombing everything.
Yeah, and if you remember, sometimes like I didn't play for a long time, and you don't remember those things.
Yeah.
I think a sense of backtracking to the village would make you remember those things. Like if they were like in a certain place, like what do bombs do? What can I use bombs to do? Oh, they blow up these specific rocks.
Yeah.
The slingshot can be used to hit switches. I see this in my home village. I remember this. And then I will say, like, some of the side quests, the way you find them is in a dungeon, you see something, but a lot of the side quests with the exploration takes you to an ancient civilization.
Yeah.
Like old things, and that's a big story trope. Think of any fantasy thing. There's always a lost civilization.
Yeah.
And actually, that comes back to real storytelling, like real life. After the fall of Rome, Christianity spread, and then there's the medieval. And Rome had a lot of technological advances and things like that the medieval people did not have. Rome had plumbing. Rome had water transport.
Holy crap! We're still dealing with dragons. What?
Yeah, medieval people.
I can poop here?
Yeah, like would throw their shit out the window. Part of my
That's why
language.
the plague happened.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have...
Oh, well, I can't poop anywhere else. Well, I guess it goes out this window.
Yeah, but those ruins, those ruins were always like a thing, and like that's so present in The Hobbit, in any fantasy, even post-apocalyptic Fallout. There's the old civilization, things like that.
Right.
It's so present, and it's present in this. And I
Because it's sort of like... It's like this world, this existence happened, but since it's gone now and it's, lost or whatever, it's establishing a new world.
what I really like about it is you learn more about it as you go along.
Roll.
In the game. You learn more about this ancient civilization, which, spoiler, they actually said at the beginning, what am I talking about?
Oh, dear God.
Is ancient humans.
Yeah.
This was
Ancient.
one half of the human population fled Earth in spaceships, and the other half are in cryogenic stasis, and you're from a generation that is waking up, and everything like that.
I want to add one thing, just really quick. How many people thought it when you did the roll for the first time? You thought do a barrel roll. I can't be the only one that heard it in my head. Please tell me I'm not the only one that heard it.
I didn't
You
think
didn't
barrel
think it?
roll.
No.
What a barrel
I thought-
roll in
well-
Sonic isn't actually a barrel roll. That's like
Star
a
Fox.
corkscrew. Is it,
Star
what,
Fox.
what did I just say?
It's
You said Sonic. Star Fox. Come on. Come on.
I guess that's what
Do
I
a
was
barrel roll. You're just like, this is
Tails
totally
is
not
like,
even a barrel roll.
Sonic.
And Samus is like, what?
Sonic
Looks
just
like
gives
a
him
barrel?
Sonic just gives him the dirtiest of looks. Like,
It's like, you. That's the sensor we need, you know?
Yeah.
We need a button that when someone's about to say something rude, you just press it. Just press it right there.
just the profanity button.
You would probably press it for me all the time.
profanity button.
They have the profanity button. Oh no, I lost. But I'm just gonna say this: that is not a barrel roll in
No, it's not.
Star Fox. A barrel roll is when you
Yeah, you go like this.
almost like you really twist over a center point.
Yeah.
In Star Fox, that's like a corkscrew where you just like twist around.
No, it's a barrel roll. Okay?
That's like-
it's a barrel roll.
Scroobies.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God. This is.
You know, I don't think we said this before. As we're talking, we're watching footage of the game that I recorded as I was playing it. And
He's so bad. Oh my
I
God.
want to talk about how much I love the enemies in this game. Even though they're difficult, I love that the pace of battle is controlled by them, but the player is the one who initiates the battle happening because of aggro.
Yeah.
But like the frogs, the first enemy you really encounter in the game, just hop at you in a specific pattern, but the level design reflects it and everything like that. The other big thing that adds to this is it has a Castlevania-esque time on the attack. It doesn't happen
Yeah.
instantaneously. It happens after like
It
a
gives
half
you
second.
it gives you the time to figure out
Tell
the
you how much
pattern.
that screwed me.
Well, just attacking, there's a delay to it.
Yeah.
And that makes it so you can't just go around beating the crap out of everything. And in a 2D game like this, that would if that delay wasn't there, this game would be broken. Because all the enemies would be
Yeah.
I mean, everything would be easy to
You
slap
just
around.
Hold the key down. You just see like this blur.
This
endlessly
Her name
while
is
you're
Gail
walking.
because she's like the winds.
Oh, way to spoil the. Oh, wait. I'm kidding.
I was gonna be
Gail
like,
is the
spoiler.
wind.
She is. the
Gail is
wind.
not a woman. She's actually wind incarnate.
She's the wind spirit.
Solidified wind.
Spoiler.
Here's another,
Gail is actual Sakura.
Here's another spoiler.
That's why she's so
You ready
useless.
You ready for
All right,
this?
big spoiler.
Godzilla.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's the last
Godzilla.
boss. It's Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Really?
Yeah, no. But it adds a lot of strategy to the active combat. So you have a great mix of like active combat, like they're constantly attacking you, and the pace of battle is very quick, but you actually have to strategize. You can't just swing around, and like you have the charged attack. So you can strategize like that too. It's like, oh, I know that frog's gonna land right in front of me, and when he does,
Oh, I did it too early.
I never actually used the charge attack that much.
I used it after a stun. That was the only time I found it useful. Is when I stunned something and I knew I had just a good amount of time to get that swing off. Otherwise, I could never time it correctly. That was one of the issues that I did have in combat sometimes, which was that there were particular times within combat they would throw so many things at you, not on purpose. Like, you know, you're supposed to sit there and kind of monitor it, but if you don't monitor it properly, so many things get thrown at you at one
Yeah.
time, you can't get the chance to get the timing.
You activate so
And-
many things, and
yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
looks at
Like
you.
the
Well-
biggest thing that I found with that was imagine the desert dungeon when you go into the bandits hideout.
yeah.
There's a certain section.
Speak up.
Oh, there's a certain.
Louder.
I'm sorry, I'm Batman.
So anyways, there's a certain section when you're in fighting the bandits, you have to fight the goddamn dragons and the goddamn bandits at the same.
That hurts, dude. You have to fight them at the same time.
heard.
Yeah, you have to fight them at the same time. They get you to learn the dragon offhand before you get there, which is good. But they throw the bandits at you so quickly that you get slapped before you actually learn them.
The thing about the dragon's weakness is that you only learn it from talking to someone,
Yeah.
or figuring it out kind of by
You
accident,
figure it out by getting hit in the face.
or by like accident.
That's how I learned punches
But-
hurt.
I think the whole strategizing and figuring out enemies before you defeat them, it's like they give you enough health and make the enemies strong
Sometimes.
enough.
Only
well,
sometimes.
But there's so many health items.
I think
I mean,
the
there
way,
are.
Yeah, I think the way they do it, because like, I try to save up money for equipment, and it's like some health items are really expensive, and you don't always get health items.
Oh, see, I learned early.
So
to
I just
screw
don't
saving.
use them because there's like the save points are usually in a place where it's like, okay, I'll just continue from there after I figure out how to progress after I just died. And I think the way with games is that they they make it so that you probably will die enough times because that gives you the incentive to keep going. It gives you that motivation to not die the next time.
I agree with that in a lot of ways. I did use a lot of health items. Just gonna say it. In the final battle, I had my entire inventory was like the max health item, and I still narrowly beat it. Yeah, we didn't mention that. This game is hard.
It's pretty difficult.
This is, my God.
And if you're looking for a free game with some depth, it took me about 13 hours to beat this game. I don't know how long you guys spent on it. I think I was the only one who
You
beat
probably
it.
are the one that beat it.
I got after the third boss.
Okay.
I'm still on the second
I
boss.
think
I
I'm
keep
like a
looking at
little
the
after
second boss,
halfway.
cursing
Also,
him.
how do you guys like the bosses? I loved
Okay,
all of them.
let me say this. I love the bosses. The
Yeah.
designs are great.
Oh, yeah.
The first Toad thing, every time it gets hurt, it has this man face that's just beautiful to look at. It literally looks like a sad man, a very sad grown man, and it just opens its mouth with a little tear, like and you feel kind of bad, like I'm so sorry that I'm hurting you this bad. Die. I wish I could make this sooner. And then the second boss is like, okay, when it gets hurt, it has a sad man face as well inside a hole.
I think, well,
Difficulty of the
I really wish I could kind of spoil the third boss, who was my favorite.
I
I
know
want
the
to
third
get
boss.
there. I
You
want to
know
say
it.
that I got there.
In the future, I think we will be able to spoil these because people know what game we're playing ahead of time, and they know what to look for. You know,
Yeah.
How many bosses are there total?
there are 4. There are a couple
So the
mini
fourth one's
bosses.
the final boss?
Yes, and then there's like a certain sequence of events after that. Third boss was by far my favorite, just mechanics. There's one item you get in this game.
See that man face?
Yeah, he cries and opens his eyes.
I will be sure to edit the man face in there right at that moment.
Just put Colin's face on it
Oh
instead.
man, face,
Colin has a man face.
sort of. I
No, he has more of a little
Technically.
boy squirrel face.
Little boy squirrel.
Yes, Colin is little boy squirrel.
That sounds disturbing. Is it like half human, half squirrel?
Kind of half human, half squirrel
guess.
mixture.
And I'm always going for your nuts.
Wow.
Wow.
I was going to keep away from jokes of that
Hold on.
nature completely.
He went there.
Yeah. He was the one. I'm just going to go for a penis. There we go. Now
Whoa.
I'm there too.
No. Okay.
And now
back to the
left-
bosses.
Now we're leaving that.
There was an item in this game that I think was absolutely brilliant, and that was the spear. Now, I hate to kind of spoil the items, but we have to. The spear was an attack item, but also a puzzle-solving item, in that when you throw the spear, it sticks into the wall, and you can jump onto it as if it was a platform. So you could reach higher areas, but you could also use it as a thrown weapon that will go all the way off screen. So if you're in a flat area and there's an enemy and you haven't aggroed him yet, he hasn't chased after you, you can run back and keep throwing the spear until you hear his death sound. That only works some of the
Wow,
times.
that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, but all of the items function that way, and that's what I loved, that they all had functions for puzzle solving and functions for attack, that they were aggressive
Probably a terrible
items.
function for attack. Let me just say, as somebody that used to play like a couple of the old school Zelda games, when I threw that bomb and it didn't explode on impact, I was upset. I was sad. I was like, this bomb is supposed to blow up on impact.
Well,
it has to sit there.
Not only that, these items are useful throughout the whole game. In every dungeon in Zelda, it's like you get the item and that's the only thing you use for the rest of the dungeon. In this, you get the slingshot. The slingshot is useful even in the final levels of the game. You can stun enemies with it. Doesn't do damage, but you can stun enemies, run away, attack them with the spear. The bomb can be used to attack unsuspecting enemies. You drop it from the top ledge down.
That was my favorite.
I mean, yeah, it was great. There are a lot of achievements for this game, one of which is ridiculous. Beat the game in 64 minutes. It took me 13 hours.
Beat the game in 64 minutes. You are probably...
Where did they get the extra 4 minutes?
You're a video game
I-
demigod.
How did they decide 64?
I think that was the author playing through, and there's like, this is my record. And then maybe he added like a couple time, like, I need to be a little lenient. I got most of the achievements, actually. But there's one for like killing killing a bandit in one hit, like on an unsuspecting bandit. Like, he's not attacking you. You just dropped him while he was sleeping.
Oh.
Definitely did that.
I got the one for destroying
I
stuff.
screwed up on that.
Just what?
I screwed up on that with the sleeping bandits. I threw a bomb and it didn't actually hit any of the bandits.
And he just woke them all
Everyone
up.
up.
I love that too. There was a punishment for it. If you miss with the bomb, you can alert enemies because it's a big explosion.
Yeah, and then you're just like, well, okay. And then you walk through the door and come back in. Everyone's asleep again.
Oh my gosh.
I looked at that
think of
area with the sleeping bandits. I stared at them. I'm like, I can screw this up in so many ways. Please don't let me screw this up. Please don't let me roll, jump. Yes, yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
gonna
I
draw
didn't wake them
faces
up.
on them while they're sleeping.
There was a great rising and falling action, like any other Zelda game. The rising action leading up to the dungeon, like for like there's the forest, you're going through that. But in later dungeons, like first you have to find what the dungeon is.
Yeah.
Then there's traversing the dungeon.
Yeah.
Then there's the boss, and then it slowly falls down after that. You have to take the bandit back to the police station. There's that fallen action. You actually get to travel back and everything like that. And then it starts to build up again all over. And like it just keeps doing this. And it's awesome.
Fantabulous.
Yeah. I think, like this game, the gameplay and everything is great, but it's really, I think it focuses a lot on storytelling than other things.
I can appreciate
Well, maybe
that.
not more than other things, but more than other games that are like,
Oh,
Yeah, there's not a
definitely.
lot of games out like that come out within this time period where story is a big part of them, and that's something that a lot of developers note to is that a lot of games don't pay attention to story the way that they should. They'll kind of like they'll start at it, they'll want to do it, but they'll get wrapped up in bells, whistles, explosions, attacks, flashy lights, and the story ends up falling to pieces later on.
And that's why I say, don't add bells and whistles to a bike with no wheels.
Yeah.
Don't make something pretty that inherently does not work.
My bike may not move, but dear God, look at those fireworks.
Yeah, I see that with game developers everywhere. They think more about like, oh, it would be so cool if this happened. It's like, so what's the central mechanic of the game? I don't know, but I want this to happen, and it's going to look like this.
Yeah, dude, just wait till he punches him in the face and his head explodes into 5 different pieces. Well, why is it doing that? Dude, I don't know, but did you see that punch? Look at that. Yeah, our animators are bosses.
It's just it's the importance of prototyping and like working up to those moments.
It's really just a big matter of understanding what the central theme of the game that you're going for
Yeah.
is. If you don't understand your own game, you're not going to be able to create it to where the whole thing feels like a big piece.
In that, what do you think the central theme of this game is? Like gameplay wise or everything like that. Like what kind of experience are we really supposed to have?
I'm really getting a big discovery like feeling, and it feels like you're starting as this plain blank slate that's exploring and discovering more about not only herself but the world around her.
yeah, it really,
After being in a bubble,
Right.
essentially.
it really helps like make you exist in this world with the whole talking to NPCs, because lots of people, you know, they just don't have patience. But if you have the patience for this kind of thing, when you talk to people, you know, there'll be that one person or 2 person group where they'll tell you about the boss or whatever. They'll just give you some sort of weird little hint, and it's like, it's not like you just go to the dungeon or whatever, and when you get to the boss is just there because it needs a boss. It's like that boss exists in this place for a reason, and it has this kind of background or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't spoil the ending, but there is a lot of self-discovery in this game. You as a player, you learn your play style, but you're also following Gale, the main character, and all these other side characters, which I really like a lot of the side characters.
Yeah.
And I wish that there was more about them.
You can't really say that any of the characters don't have some sort of flavor or personality.
Like I love Lisa.
Yeah, she's so
Lisa
sassy.
with the like
There she is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Lisa with the little like animals and everything that she
Pookie.
hates. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Pookies.
The sheep, what are they?
sheepdogs.
and-
They're like sheepdogs to me.
I don't know.
They're like poodle dog. No,
Yeah,
you know what
oh,
they
yeah,
look
they're
like?
sheep-
Sheep Eevee.
poodle.
They
yeah.
look like sheep
I saw that
Eevee.
once and I
Sheep-
thought
sheep-
it looks like
sheep-
Eevee.
Yeah, sheep Eevee.
Sheep Eevee.
Yeah.
But like,
So
I
obviously
love
don't
her
shave your
personality.
Eevee.
The scientist that you meet,
Thomas.
yeah, he cracks me up. The prince, even one of the guards, and just everything like that. And in the beginning of the
Max.
game, you remember the guard's name? I
Max.
actually didn't even remember the
Wow.
guard's name.
I don't remember Lisa's name. Everybody else is just cool
prince's
looking
name
guy
is
number
Leo.
1, cool looking guy number 2.
Yeah, but like some of
A-hole
them
number 3.
have personality and
Frog.
things like that. I wish there was more to them.
Yeah.
And actually, this brings up just a side story. So I guess Miyamoto actually said this at one point. He wanted to make a Zelda game that was more RPG-like, where you could swap in between more characters than just Link. And that's what I wanted from Twilight Princess. Because they introduced like a ninja lady, a swordsman, like this other character. But all they do is talk to you.
Yeah.
And then in the very end of the game, they do a thing.
It was a little upsetting. I understood why they did it the way they did because the whole thing is you're Link, and he's the most important person in the whole freaking game, and it's like you're part of this group of people that are also trying to save. The world
they
for once.
do nothing.
Wait,
Yeah,
no, there is
I mean-
a Zelda game that doesn't have that RPG elements. Dude, did you not see Hyrule Warriors?
I'm just gonna say that isn't like it's semi-Zelda game, but I actually heard like a conference where they were talking like it's a Zelda game. It has rupees, it has hearts.
No.
It's like
No,
just because you decorated it like a Zelda
Literally,
game does not make it a
Hyrule
Zelda game.
Warriors is just a Dynasty Warriors game wearing a Hyrule Warriors cosplay.
Oh my
Hyrule
God.
Zelda cosplay.
Oh my god, Hyrule!
Yeah.
Oh my! Hey, I put it together. I get it.
Yeah, it's
now.
a Dynasty Warriors game wearing a friggin' Zelda cosplay. That's all it is.
And though, I mean, that's easing into that idea that maybe they will make a game where you can change in between characters.
I'm not gonna say I'm not knocking the
Because
game because that action.
Yeah, it was still
for
fun.
a Dynasty Warriors game. It's a good Dynasty Warriors game.
It was
just like
fun.
a kind of not so
It
much
just
Zelda game.
It's not Zelda, but
Yeah.
it was fun. And I mean, playing as Goron, that's what I loved about Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
Goron and Sora was awesome.
When they were talking about making a game with, after Ocarina of Time, because Ocarina of Time was their first 3D Zelda, they thought after, there was Final Fantasy and stuff like that at the time too, so then they thought, after Final Fantasy VII, which was the first 3D Final Fantasy, they wanted to make that RPG with multiple characters and things like that. And with Majora's Mask, there were, stipulations about how they only had a year or something to make it, I think, or finish it, and that's why they made it the whole mask thing where you change into a different race instead of having different characters. You're the same character, but you have different abilities. And
Yeah.
that was their adaptation.
And you take on their personality in some ways too.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. Anyway, I just wish that, and I think we are, because there is going to be a sequel of this game. I didn't mention it. The creator is making a sequel of this
Is
game.
there a release date yet, or is it just
I have
progress?
no idea. I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, this game's not that
Come
old.
out when Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out.
We better tell this gentleman that we're talking about the game.
Maybe I will message him. I mean,
Will?
what about
You
Will?
will.
Yeah.
Will's not part of this podcast.
Oh. He's not part of our major anymore.
He'll be the guest.
All right. What else do we have to talk about?
Please, let me talk about some more of the battle.
Oh, go ahead.
itched
Talk
me
about
so
your
much.
talk about
I'm gonna
your
talk about my struggle.
Your personal struggles.
My personal struggle, which was where I'm
talk
stuck
about how
at
your
currently
handwriting
in gameplay. I am stuck at the second boss for a specific reason, which went back to me saying stuff being thrown at you at too many times. Imagine how the boss fight goes. You start off with the classic dragon movement. You get the roll. That's fine.
Classic dragon movement. Dragons are known for the rolling.
Yes, dragons are known for rolling. Don't you know
Oh my
that?
God, Sonic's a dragon.
Exactly. Well, I'm talking about the previous dragons, the ones that you meet, like the
Okay,
baby
yes,
ones.
yes.
They roll, you get that. I forgot that they do spit things. That caught me off guard. But however, you get the first roll, that's fine. You get the bounce one. The bounce one, it took me dying multiple times to actually understand what the pattern of it was, only because it came so quickly that, it's hard to click and say, holy crap, let me watch this pattern. Before you know it, you're already hit. So instead of being able to sit back and go, okay, I know when he's going to bounce, depending on where he pops up, he either pops up really close or too close for
Have
you
you
to
hurt
sit there and
him?
monitor.
Have you hurt him?
The dragon?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know how to hurt him?
Yeah, I do,
Don't-
which took an
don't-
accident. I
Yeah,
accidentally, I'm not
that's
going
what
to
I'm
mention
gonna
how I
say.
did it, but I didn't discover it at first. I had to literally screw around and get to it, because when I first did it, I thought it was something completely different. So I was like, okay, I'll mimic that, and that wasn't it.
To be fair, one of the first things I thought was, he looks very similar to a certain Zelda enemy. I wonder
Oh,
if this
yeah.
is the same way you hurt him.
Yeah.
I know. That would make sense. I didn't even catch that because I was too busy thinking it's a giant dragon. He's gonna be easy because I can beat the little ones. And I'm like, no, God, no, he screwed me. He screwed me.
I think with the bosses, because in every dungeon you see that little sign with the
Yeah.
skull on it.
I mean,
and
know
you
you're
figure
about
out
to go.
that means there's the boss coming up, and there's like the save point right beside it too, so you know. And when you get there, like into the next room, you pretty much think that this is the boss room, but you don't. But the boss rooms are big enough that you don't know where exactly they're gonna pop out at you. And when they do pop out at you, they almost immediately start attacking you. So it gives you that.
No, this one
adrenaline
didn't
and that-
immediately start attacking. He gave
Yeah.
a little anticipation
like
first.
the
The boom,
the fight or
boom.
fly kind of thing where you
Yeah.
have to. It's like, okay, here he is, and he's attacking you right now. You need to figure out right now how to beat him, and then that sort of pushes you even more to figure out how to beat him, even if you die like 100 times.
But
like
think of
I
it
did.
like this: between the first boss and the second boss, it felt like an immense difference in how quickly you're supposed to be able to anticipate a boss battle in general. Because even imagine a boss battle is different than the normal tiny ones that you fight with just random enemies, which is significantly easier because it doesn't take that many hits. There's thinking involved, but the consequences for messing up aren't as huge. For like between the first and second boss battle, the first one gave you an instant thing to look at to tell you, hey, that's about probably what I have to use to fight him with. You don't really get that with this one. You have to let him attack and hope to God that you catch onto it while you're fighting. If you don't catch onto
Yeah.
it, then
I don't think
you
it's-
just keep letting them attack.
I don't think his tell is very strong.
Yeah, and then like to add on to it, some of the attacks that he did, there's a certain way. Like we both already know this. All of us already know this. That when you're in a battle, there's a build up to it for you to start really learning what he can do. The thing that irritated me the most is when he shoots the barrels. You know how the smaller dragons just shoot like one shot and that's fine. I don't expect him to mimic that. But if you imagine that his moveset switches up a little bit every time his health goes down, it started off instantly with the 3 shots. And if you didn't know how to stop those 3 shots, you're gonna have a much harder time fighting this battle
Well,
because of things on the ground.
it does-
They could have built up to that better. They could have went like 1 barrel so you can see, okay, if I don't deflect the barrels, that's gonna hit the ground. And then when you get his health down lower, now it goes to 2. Okay, now I know it's progressing, as well as I already know how to stop it, so I can avoid it from getting to this horrible point. And then when it's at its lowest, it hits the 3 point where you're like, okay, I know it's a progression of his difficulty because I damaged him this much. I already know what's happened beforehand. I know how to stop it. It's my own fault for not getting to this point or not being able to avoid it. When the barrels first came out, you don't really know how to stop them. And it already hit its bad point because you didn't know how to stop it.
Well, it's very clear that it's your fault. Everything's your fault.
I mean, yeah, everything's my fault, but it's like for that particular moment in the boss fight.
I will say that. That is what I love about it. Every death felt justified to me.
Yeah.
I never felt like I got cheated by the game. I felt like I didn't play well enough every single time I died. I mean, even in the final boss was frustrating, but I knew I could beat it. And especially with all the health items I had.
Yeah.
And even then, I died one of the first times I did it, even though I had a full inventory of the highest health items you could have. What was I going to say? Oh, the enemies. Something I like about them. The only other game I can think of, mainstream game, that has a story and world exploration like this is the Super Paper Mario on the Wii. It's a 2D RPG action kind of thing. It's different from the other Paper Marios.
Quote 2D.
A lot of the enemies in that game had specific ways you had to hit them, which was cool. In this game, you can actually hurt enemies almost no matter what you do to them. Not all of, like, even the basic enemies don't necessarily have weak spots. So they focused more on the environmental hazards in combination with enemies. Frogs near water, which the main character cannot swim in.
Yeah.
You fall in water, you get
Gale,
hurt.
capable of smacking everything with a stick, incapable of moving her arms and legs through liquids.
But so putting a frog in that, and the frog can swim.
Yeah.
And so,
Gale, less than a frog.
Yeah, I think we all understand that the frog is OP.
I think
Frog master race.
It's above Gale.
everything I heard from this game once I introduced it to you guys was, screw frogs.
Yeah.
That was the first thing every single one of you said. On the page, it was every comment, screw frogs. I agree. Screw frogs. Frogs suck.
Just think how the frogs are. You just see this frog and you're like, okay, I assume
you
it's gonna
guys-
hop. Dear God, it has a
Hey, guys.
freaking Superman hop.
There's a stronger version of the frogs later in the game.
Yeah, you
Yes.
told me about it.
It's just like
I'm gonna look at it and I'm like, where's Gale's pistol?
it's like the very first enemies. Okay, there's this weird spiky caterpillar thing that you can't kill, and then there's like these slimes, which aren't
Slimes
real
are
at
kinda
all,
typical.
like a real thing, and that's
Yeah.
like frog. It's just a frog.
To be fair, it's a really big frog. It's like the same size as you.
Slime. Okay, it moves back. Oh, that's kind of quick. All right. Okay, that's gone. Frog. Okay, it's just a frog. What's that gonna do? Oh my god!
And later on, when you encounter the bees, which I think are more difficult than the frogs, because when you hurt one, all his friends get.
That's a very
pissed
like
off.
classic type of enemy mechanic where it's like an enemy.
Hive mind.
The hive mind. It's like okay. Now we encounter an enemy that won't do what every other enemy is, which is like, oh, one of my friends got hurt. Oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with me.
I also like how that's the only area where the bees are, where they have that kind of enemy with the hive mind, because it really makes that area unique.
And one
Just
of
made
the
me not
very
wanna
few,
explore.
I think it might be the only enemy in the game that does. Well, no, besides the bees and the caterpillar, I think are the only enemies in the game that don't actively seek you out.
Yeah.
The bees all follow specific paths. They're passive hazards at first, but then as soon as you attack one, they become active hazards and attack you.
If not being able to kill something like those caterpillars, that you can't kill them and they don't attack you, does that make them an enemy because they move around?
It's more of
they're
an
like a
environmental
creature?
hazard
Or is it
than
like a
anything.
hazard?
The caterpillars are a passive hazard that just moves. It's essentially moving.
It's the equivalent
spikes.
of Donkey Kong's barrel.
Yeah.
They're the equivalent of Donkey Kong's barrel.
Or the spikes from, or like the blade things in Zelda
Zelda.
games.
Yeah.
Or just blades in general that go.
There was something interesting about the bee part that I started noticing, which was the only one that actually actively comes after you within that area is, of course, the spiders that drop down. Oh, I wonder what they kind of seem like from a Zelda game. I fucking hate those things. But the spider is like the only thing that actually would actively come after you, which is, it drops down, tries to pick you up and drag you into
Even
hell.
then, it's semi-passive because, as I was saying, we control when a battle starts.
Yeah.
And they just retract. It's the same thing as a guillotine dropping down and then coming back up. That's all the spider is. They don't move. They are a passive hazard because they're part of the environment and they just have an aggro. You step in that area, it's the same thing as a guillotine falling. It's
But
just
then
a
think
spider.
of this. If we actively start to fight, like we'll go and like, I think I want to kill the spider because it might drop some gold, it might drop a thing, who knows, or I might just want to kill it because I have a thing against spiders and I'm going to slay all spiders in the area. So, you go and attack it. Something that ended up happening to me quite often, which was I would decide to go, okay, spider drop. Why would I go over there and attack the spider? I could shoot it with the friggin' slingshot. I would miss, hit a bee. They made that entire area. They made you have to plan out how you were going to start an assault. Because you couldn't just go around shooting a slingshot like you could before in the forest.
Yeah.
You had to know what you were doing.
I love
now.
that, how they
forced you to
make
aim.
items almost obsolete, because it's like, okay, you have this, but now it's not going to help you as much.
Yeah.
We had to teach you to be careful.
Exactly. They took it from where you had the ability to just kind of shoot the slingshot willy-nilly in the forest, ruin area, because, you had walls and stuff. It will bounce. You don't have to worry about hitting something wrong
when I was-
say.
Well, when I was growing up, I had a slingshot, and I would just parade around the neighborhood just slingshotting everybody and people, and then I learned some people got upset and they didn't like that. So
When
then I
you
learned
hit
how to
old
be
lady
careful.
Petunia and she came with a cane.
When I was young, I had a slingshot, but it was 6 feet tall. We
What?
So we didn't take it very many places. Yeah, we had 3 walnut trees, and then we had this tree branch that was perfectly shaped like a slingshot.
Oh.
It was symmetrical. It was rounded. We don't know. I don't know how my dad found it. But then we got an inner tube. I don't know. We had a lot of trees, but then we got an inner tube and turned it into a slingshot, and we could shoot walnuts from. We had an extra yard. We could shoot walnuts probably farther than about 600 yards. If I was aiming well enough, I could have broken the windows at my neighbor's house, which was oh my god!
Oh, let's see the neighbors borrow sugar again and not do something for us. Fire!
Also, getting hit left a blood bruise. Those bruises that turn like if you get hit with a airsoft gun, but with a walnut.
Ooh,
yeah, that was I love that slingshot.
that is terrible. That's what every animal and every enemy feels like when encountering Gale. Like, oh, she's kind of cute. I won't mess
Is that a
with her.
slingshot?
What did you get shot?
Is that a rock? What the hell?
This hurts. It's not like doing that much damage, but ow! Why? Stop it! You are bad. You are a bad lady.
And then they just maybe the frogs aren't even actively frogs don't look angry. They're just like
You know what the frogs are doing? They're just trying to get to point A to point B. You know, they're just trying to go home. And then here comes this pink-haired jerk.
You
with
just
her
happen to be
slingshot.
point B.
Yeah, I was about to say, point B is you on the
Smell
ground.
They're like, hey, you know, you seem kind of cool. I just want to give you a hug with my fist. You know, it's nothing difficult. Oh, why'd you shoot me with that? You see, now I have to hug you harder.
What are some of the last things I have to say? The backtracking in the game, I loved it. There were a lot of reasons to backtrack and explore, and
It was a good kind of backtracking.
and they always encouraged it. It was always there. It was even in like the dungeons. You would see a spot that you knew you would have to backtrack to, and then you would find something worthwhile. To get the last weapon in the game, there was a backtracking, and it was hard for me to find. You get one of the last power ups, and it's in a certain area. And I didn't even think to go up there. I was just going places because I was like, well, I've checked everywhere else for this thing. I'll go here. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I bet I can do this now. See, it feels really weird. I think we need to start spoiling things because now I'm just speaking in pronouns. Yeah, we need to do this thing then at the place with this item, which unlocks that.
Well, spoiler alert, Gale dies a lot. So, you know, let's just start there.
That's your fault.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I suck. If anyone needs to know, I'm terrible.
Hashtag spoiler alert.
Yep. Hashtag dies a lot.
Hashtag. All right. The story is also a good example of the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. If you want to know what the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is,
Google.
watch Star Wars. The original Star Wars is the hero's journey to a T.
Yeah, I was going to say that because Gail, when we were talking about her design, they used that really classic idea of starting from nothing and becoming important.
from
Because it's
the
like
bottom, now we're here.
her brother, Alex, is this really smart child who's younger than her. And it seems like he's more successful than Gail or whatever in
Gail's
like
a rock.
life or whatever. Or like, you know. But she earns her respect from this game.
She earns it by hitting everything with a stick for a while.
Well, and because of this, there's a call to adventure. Think of The Hobbit, because The Hobbit's a great Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You get supernatural aid at some point. Someone comes along and helps you. There's a mentor character. You have a call to adventure. There's going to be a part... The end of this Phoenotopia 1 is like falling. I believe it's halfway through the circle of the hero's journey. The hero falls and then rises again, more powerful with more knowledge. And I think that's where the next game's going to pick up. And the end of the game is going to be at the very beginning again. And that's the hero's journey, and that's how Zelda is too. And a lot of games follow this, and it's
kind of
great story.
like the thing that we were talking about in the first class for the game design course.
They don't know our class.
That's why I said it kind of quickly.
Our listener does not know our class.
Well, our listener
listener.
should come
Yes.
to the Cleveland Institute of Art. It's located. Anyways, it's
Most
kind
of
of
our
like what
listeners are-
Jared was telling us, who was the best professor ever and should give me an A+ in the class. That it's the
Boy,
same
I
thing
love
for
his
Russian folk tales. Where missing elders, boom, everyone in your village leaves.
Yeah.
It forces the character to then leave, go find them, and all the things.
And-
I forgot what he called it.
Yeah.
What was their name? Something prop.
Yes,
Prop, yeah.
Vladimir Prop.
There we go. Yeah,
And all the elders do disappear. It's only the
Exactly.
children that are left.
it's exactly that same formula,
All them
which
old
works.
All them old people get gone.
Yeah,
Also, I want to say I love Jared's blue shirts.
that are gone because he picked a red one that day.
He was wearing a blue... Wait, wasn't he,
was
wearing a
wearing
blue...
red.
He was wearing red.
I thought we
his
were-
class.
No.
He was false flagging.
Oh.
He decided red that day instead of blue. Next, he's gonna do green, and we just won't know what to do.
All right, well, I guess we're going to start wrapping it up. I'm going to say I loved this game, and people need to play it.
I would
If you
love it
love-
when I beat the second boss.
If you love Zelda and you're looking for a game that... And there are save points everywhere. But not so often that it makes the game super easy. Because they don't replenish your health.
Yeah.
They have
But
health items around
it's-
them, and I abused that. I would leave the
Yeah.
save
Yeah,
point,
definitely
go,
abuse
just like
that.
wander a little bit, go to a couple other rooms, dodge some foes, come back, heal up, save, go to the boss.
But that's because the boss is right after those save points, and like the whole way through an area full of enemies is difficult enough that you can abuse that, but it still won't guarantee that you're going to get through it, because it's like for the bosses, when you go into the boss, you have enough health that you can still lose easily.
Well,
Yeah.
what I really love is that this game still feels casual in a way. That
Yeah.
you can easily get so far, save, come back. Like, days later and pick up where you left, because there's a save point at least like every 5 minutes of the game almost, which is good for a Flash game that's meant to be short and easy to play and pick up. Even though this game has so much depth, it doesn't feel like you have to commit to playing. And I agree that video games should not ever make you feel like a sense of commitment, like that it's work. It should feel like a game.
That's why I should install Brave Frontier.
I was gonna say, like, the whole achievement about beating it in 64 minutes. I was thinking, how do you do that? But I thought a lot of defeating enemies is based off timing, because with bosses, once you figure out how to do it, there's that timing where you have to attack them, and it can take 4 stages of them being stunned, or it can take 2 depending on how quickly you can get to them to beat the crap out of them and how fast you wail on them. And the same with enemies, having to figure out the timing that you can hit them before they attack back.
I'll honestly say that this
Or
was
just
the type
skipping
of game
enemies.
that I would have expected it on Steam.
Yeah,
And drop a good $5-10.
Oh yeah, I was
Drop
thinking
it quickly.
Bastion and Transistor were amazing games, but they were only about 6 hours long. But I mean, don't judge a game by its length. You wouldn't.
Oh, yeah, I'm not
You would
gonna-
never be upset with a movie by how long it was. Like, this movie was unless it was unjustified short.
Yeah.
But this game, it took me 13 hours to beat it, and I didn't get everything. But I mean, and Bastion was like a $20 game, and it took me 6 hours to beat it, and 10 hours
Kind
to
of the same
get
flavor
everything.
like Journey. It only took me roughly, I think, what was the max?
Well,
2 hours,
Journey's a different kind of. I mean, it's meant to not be long. It's
Well,
meant to be a
yeah.
very like Five Nights at Freddy's. You play that game twice, you're not going to have the same experience.
that
It's a
game's-
one experience game. That's why it's like $1 to $5. This
Right.
game, I would have paid about $5 for it. The aesthetic was good enough, the story was well written enough, and the gameplay was fun enough to keep me engaged, and that I would have paid for it.
We're totally going to get this guy to try and port it to Steam now. He's going to get that greenlit so quick. He's going to be like, I'm getting the sequel on Steam. Yeah.
Newgrounds bought it
Yeah.
initially. I saw it was on Armor Games now. I don't know if that's because after a year-long period, Armor Games could have it too, but I believe Newgrounds initially bought the game, and there were still ads on the game, so
Yeah,
they were
there are plenty.
getting income.
Yeah, I think if he did make the sequel for Steam, it would be good, because this game isn't super long, obviously, but if the sequel were... I think it'd be good, because the sequel could be paid for by consumers, the gamers, but just be
worth it.
longer than the first one, because the first one would be sort of like an introduction to it.
If you can keep that same flavor of the first one in it, it'd be
And
worth
it'll
it.
give you and when you beat it, then it's like after the ending and you realize there's a cliffhanger and you want the second one.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, now I really want to play the second one, which
Yeah,
will
it's
make me want
already
to buy it.
creates itself.
He's making it in Unity, and that means he could easily port it over to things like Xbox Live Arcade.
PS4, Xbox,
Everything
Live.
like that. I would love to see this on like the Wii U, and they're starting to open it up to third-party developers. I would love to see this game on the 3DS
Type
or a
of aesthetic it
handheld.
has, it could go mobile too if you really wanted to.
I would love that,
Yeah, I mean, it would probably have the kind of on-screen button thing,
which I actually hate.
Yeah, but I mean, it could easily still go mobile. Is the point? I could see it on the Google Play Store. I could see it on the App
you
Store.
can Google Play Store,
You
I
can
see
just
it
get
on.
that like game controller accessory for phones.
If you wanted to do it mobile, you just have to make the little on-screen buttons kind of like transparent, But
I just don't
Hate
like
it,
on-screen
but yeah.
buttons.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't like
with
it.
the iPad, with literally infinite screen space that you can touch. It's infinite because if you've ever heard that whole thing, let's use a frog for this example because of frogs. If a frog
because frogs.
jumps a foot and then jumps half of everything after his previous jump, it will never reach the wall because it's only moving half. So take that. It's infinite space. And then you have on-screen buttons.
I'm only okay with on-screen buttons if they make it a part of the aesthetic of the game. If it's not like a blatant button,
Well, I mean, strategy games where there's like a menu kind of thing.
That's fine.
That's fine. But like an on-screen button where it's like a D-pad, I don't think those games need to be on
Like
the
emulated
iPad.
games.
Yeah.
I'm only okay with it if it fits the same flavor of the game. Kind of like if you had a D-pad, but it looked like artwork meant to be in the game. It didn't feel like it was actual buttons. It didn't stick out as buttons. It just felt like a part of everything else.
It's a mechanic thing to me that there's so much more you can do with an iPad and everything like that than just touching the screen and messing around like that.
It'd just be. I feel like it's just kind of
there's
hard for
swipes,
certain games like
circles,
that.
everything like that.
You know, because you don't want to put your hand too far into the screen. We need to see everything else, see the timing of enemies.
Design about it. I mean, not all games with on-screen. Like, I mean, I can't say that. There are always exceptions to the rule. I just, on a typical basis, I don't enjoy that. Anyway, let's wrap this up. Again, I am Robert Lauer. I am a sophomore in game design, and I was the facilitator for this discussion.
I'm Austin Haller. I'm a game design sophomore as well.
I'm Cameron Denton. I'm also a game design software. God damn it. I'm a game design software. Yes, I'm a software. I'm actually not here.
I'm Colin Wolf. I'm still here.
Oh, hey, didn't see you there.
Oh, jeez.
Colin Wolf is actually an NPC, and he only talks to you when you talk to him.
It only tells you if you hit X.
Isn't that right, Colin?
This is actually true. Yes.
You should have wore your NPC shirt.
I was thinking about it, but
But you decided to wear your cowbutt shirt.
yeah, jeez.
He wore his NWA shirt.
Full circle!
Oh.
We started off with cow butts and ended with cow butts. All right, we'll see you next month. I almost forgot. The game we will be playing for next month is a Flash game called Steambirds.
Yes.
I will post a link in the video so that people can access it.
Are we doing just the levels, or are we doing the...
We'll talk about the whole game.
Okay.
We'll talk about the survival mode, the levels, and everything like that. All right, everyone. Till next month. Catch you later.